Hello and welcome to PMF IAS Magnum Weekly. I'm Akshay Vrat and I would be talking about this week's current affairs in the subject of science and technology from the date of 1st of July till 7th of July 2025. Let's look at the list of the important topics that were there in the news. The first topic of our discussion would be the revised guidelines issued by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy of National Biomass Program. National Biomass Program, it's an important program considering the waste to energy solutions and whatever bio waste is specially generated in the rural areas, how it can be converted into energy or other productive solutions. So it's an important project, we'll talk about it. Then we'll talk about Alpha Genome. It's a new AI model unveiled by Google DeepMind Laboratory. It is the same laboratory from where, Google Gemini, Google Duplay, these AI innovations have come out. Then we'll talk about magnetic resonance guided focus ultrasound therapy. It's a therapy for treating tremors. Tremors is something that we often see with old age. Our neuromuscular coordination, it gets affected in such a way that it sometimes causes tremors with old age. Sometimes in the case of Parkinson's as well, tremors become quite frequent in later stages of Parkinson's, can be even life-threatening in some cases. So magnetic resonance guided focus ultrasound technology is an important innovation in this direction. Then we'll talk about light as a super solid. We'll talk about what exactly is a super solid and how light scientists have been able to create light and convert it into a super solid substance. For your understanding, super solid substances are technically those substances which share both properties of solids and liquid. That means they can be as crystalline as a solid and as convenient in flow like a liquid. So light can actually behave like a super solid in certain conditions. We'll talk about it. Then we'll talk about the ham radio, a very simple, very conventional radio. Why it was in news? Because of late we all know, Mr. Sudhanshu Shukla, he has become the second Indian to go to space, and he has used a ham radio to communicate with the students of various universities. So we'll talk about what exactly is a ham radio. UPSC can ask these kind of things. And then we'll talk about altermagnets. Altermagnets are basically magnets. Now these are also very interesting things. These are basically substances that are not really magnetic, right? Or they can behave like a magnet, but they can also cancel out magnetic fields. So it's an interesting kind of a substance. We'll talk about this extremely rare property called altermagnets in a short while. So guys, these are going to be the 6 topics that I'll discuss in this week's Magnum Weekly. I'm sorry guys, this is not 1st of July, this is 8th of July, right? So on 8th of July, these are the topics that I'm going to discuss, right? So let us start with our discussion. The first topic of our discussion is revised guidelines for biomass program. Now what are the revised guidelines for biomass program? So let me first talk about what is the national biomass program, what exactly is the function, what is the objective, and then we'll see what has been the changes in the revised guidelines. Okay, so let's look at the program. It is mostly a factual topic, so I'll be mostly reading out the facts which are there in the PPT already. So you have to just write down the important points and that should be enough. UPSC can ask topics related to national biomass program. They can ask topics like from which ministry has started this, which is the nodal ministry, what is the objective of the national biomass program, or if they want to draft a mains like question, then they can talk about waste management, rural waste management, and there while writing solutions or initiatives, you can mention the national biomass program. Right now, this particular program was launched in the year 2022. It has been introduced by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, right, MNRE, and the objective is simply to use biomass and waste as a clean energy source. Now guys, all of you must have also heard of something called biofuels. Now before I talk about biofuels, let me quickly explain what exactly is the meaning of biomass and how this biomass can be used as a fuel source. I'll give you a few examples. So guys, what exactly is a biomass? Biomass is simply referred as dry weight of an organism, right? What is dry weight of an organism? Let's say for example, if my weight is 100 kilograms, now we already know that humans in general have 70% body filled with water. So if 70% of the body is water, then if my weight is 100 kgs, then 70% of this body, if you take out as water, what is left is 30 kilograms. So 30 kilograms would be my biomass. So basically weight of an organism minus the weight of water, what is left is called biomass. So biomass is dry weight of an organism. Got it? Biomass, right? Now, what is the biomass in general made up of? So biomass is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and other nutrient elements, right? It is made up of these things. Now guys, we already know that whatever fossil fuels we have, the fossil fuels of today's time are also nothing but biomass that have roamed over earth, biomass that was there on earth millions of years back in time. That biomass got buried. Plants, animals, trees, all of them got buried, and as they got buried and underwent decomposition for millions of years under high pressure and temperature, this led to the breakdown of that biomass and convert it into fossil fuel. So whatever coal that we have today, we believe that it is nothing but the trees that got buried under the earth millions of years back and converted into coal. Whatever oil and natural gas that we have today, it is mostly the animals that got buried millions of years back and then eventually turned into crude oil or natural gas. So this is basically what we have under biomass also. So biomass is also practically made up of same ingredients. It's practically made up of the same substances which are there in fossil fuel. But in order to skip the entire weight of millions of years, we can convert the biomass straight away into some types of fuels, and those fuels can essentially be used as an alternative for fossil fuels. Like for example, when you talk about CNG, we already have something called bio-CNG, which is nothing but a bio alternative of conventional fossil fuel based CNG. When you talk about petrol, we already know that in India, a lot of petrol vehicles are being blended with ethanol. Ethanol has been found to be a good replacement for petrol. In fact, guys, ethanol can also be blended in diesel. Some diesel vehicles without a modification can use up to 5% ethanol. Then you might have also heard of biodiesel, which has been found to be a good alternative of petroleum diesel. So all these are biofuels that can easily be used for replacing fossil fuels. So first advantage is that they are made from organically available waste, naturally available waste in the form of agrarian waste, and second advantage is that this particular fuel is supposed to be carbon neutral, so the impact on planet Earth is also very less. So guys, let's talk about it. So National Biomass Program that Government of India launched, it is basically having an objective of using the naturally available biomass waste into some clean energy source. The scheme was introduced in the year 2022 and the phase 1 will run until 2025-26. So this is the last phase of the phase 1 going on. So it has been implemented by the state nodal agencies. So basically Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is the nodal ministry, but it has been implemented with the help of state notified agencies, state notified organizations which are working with the with MNRE. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has released revised guidelines for the biomass program under the phase 1. What are the revised guidelines? It is already listed here. You can note them down. The revision aims to simplify the process to promote cleaner energy from agricultural residue. The objective is simple, that we need to simplify the process of promoting cleaner and renewable energy, right? Now, here are some of the points under the National Biomass Program. First is Waste to Energy Program. This is the first part of the National Biomass Program, converting the organically available rural waste into some energy sources. So like I gave you examples of biogas, bio-CNG for power plants in urban, industrial and agricultural waste. Then the second program is using biomass. Second part is the biomass program. Now this biomass program is basically envisaged in converting the biomass into bricks and pellets. The reason of using it as bricks and pellets is it can be used in power generation industry. It can be used in industries that support renewable types of materials for construction purposes. You know, there are now bricks made from agrarian waste, right? So these are often called as perforated bricks. These are different names that keeps coming up, and some of these bricks use organic biomass as a residue. So it supports manufacturing of bricks and pellets, and promotion of biomass-based cogeneration in industries from agro residues. And the third part is biogas program. This is also the part of National Biomass Program, and this is basically to promote development of biogas plants in rural areas. But remember, guys, biogas plants are a good opportunity for rural areas, but you have to understand biogas uses a lot of water. Usually the water requirement is 1:100. So if I'm basically using 1 unit of biomass, then it may use 100 times more water. So we have to mix it with a lot of water to convert it into a slurry, and then essentially leave it for breaking down. So that basically affects the overall efficiency. So these are the three components of the National Biomass Program. Now after this, moving on from here, the next part of the discussion is, so what are the revised guidelines? So the revised guidelines are simplified the process. The process has been simplified, for which basically calls for reducing paperwork and delays. The project developers must submit performance data every quarter. So if there is any project that has been funded by the ministry for under the National Biomass Program, every quarter the project developers have to submit their performance. Then guys, there are going to be 2-year contracts that has been now replaced with general sale agreements. So basically earlier there were contracts given for every project where Government of India used to be a buyer, but now there are general sale agreement that are given for supporting these businesses. And then guys, there is a central financial assistance up to 80% for the full output and pro rata for partial performance. So up to 80% of central financial assistance can be given for such projects. And lastly guys, there is now a possibility of getting certification for pellets and briquettes produced that may choose from either emission certification by MNRE or CPCB. So the pellets that are now being produced under the biomass program of the National Biomass Mission, National Biomass Program, you can actually get a certification for it. That means, like that the vehicles are certified as BS6, BS4 depending on its energy efficiency and its emissions. So in the same way, pellets produced from biomass can also be identified on the basis of their certification, on the basis of how much CO2, how much residues they are emitting. So that is also another factor. I hope you guys are able to understand, right? This is the certification. So these are the important pointers that one should know regarding the National Biomass Program. If UPSC would want to ask a question, like I already told you, they can ask 3 types of questions. They can ask about the basic objectives of National Biomass Program. They can ask the second thing, that is about the initiatives taken by Government of India in order to promote waste to energy initiatives, right? This can be asked in mains exam. And the third question can be related to the progress made in National Biomass Program, right? So this could be the 3 kinds of questions that UPSC can ask. I hope all of you guys are able to understand. Moving on to the next topic is alpha genome. What is alpha genome? Again, it is more or less a factual topic. The first 3 topics here are very much factual. So I'll quickly share them and then we'll talk about some conceptual topics. These are the last 3 topics of our discussion. So alpha genome is an AI model. It is the new AI model developed by the Google DeepMind laboratory, right? And this is basically an AI model for predicting genetic mutations, right? So if I just read what is the objective, it is basically to predict how genetic mutations affects health and may help in guiding future treatments. So it's an AI model that is supposed to help us predicting that how genetic mutations in a person may affect their health and also help in providing long-term future medication or treatment in curing or in saving a person against such impacts, right? It concentrates on the non-coding regions of the DNA. Non-coding regions are basically those regions which actually do not code for protein, which actually do not show their expressions, right? But if there are some significant mutations found in non-coding regions, it may affect the coding part also in resisting or in expressing their genes as well. So this is basically the area which concentrates on the non-coding part of the DNA, and it examines extensive DNA sequences to identify changes caused by the genetic mutation. So if there is any change in the genes, if there is any change in the arrangement of the DNA, it basically is going to study them and predict how those changes will affect the health of a person. So it predicts how these mutations would affect molecular functions like gene expressions and protein binding. Remember guys, all the characters that we have in our body are technically protein characters. So if your DNA supports a taller height, that taller height may be because of the proteins that are secreted in the body, that is based on the DNA configuration of a person. So a taller height individual is likely to have such a DNA which is going to induce higher growth hormones, and those growth hormones are going to support a taller structure. So like this, the things can be easily understood. So every expression of the body is technically a protein expression, and this particular AI model is basically meant for seeing if there is any mutation in the DNA and how it will affect the protein expressions of the body. It is based on a similar DeepMind models that have been released previously also. It is Informer and Alpha Missense, right? These are the older versions which has now been upgraded with Alpha Genome. Just this much guys, nothing much to talk about. If UPSC would want to ask a question on this, they may simply ask Alpha Genome that has been popularly in the news, what is it related to? That could be a simple question that if UPSC wants to ask, or otherwise if UPSC wants to ask other questions related to impact of AI in healthcare, you can use Alpha Genome as a good example in order to diagnose or in order to predict what kind of health hazards can occur in the future for a person's lifestyle, right? So these are the possible questions that you can expect in Alpha Genome. Now guys, the third topic, again a very much factual topic, but an important one because it is related to somewhat in India as well. So this is MRGFUS. What is it? It's called magnetic resonance guided focused ultrasound. Now what is this magnetic resonance guided focused ultrasound? So this is basically a non-invasive therapy. What is non-invasive guys? Non-invasive means that you do not have to make any cuts on the body and you don't have to insert anything into the body. Like non-invasive would be, if you guys have ever gone for an ultrasound scan, sometimes if a person has been diagnosed with kidney stones, stones in the gallbladder, or if there is a pregnant mother, doctors often suggest to go for an ultrasound scan. The ultrasound scan that you go for is a non-invasive diagnostic technique. Basically, the doctor does not put an injection. A doctor does not make a cut. They do not make any insertion. Rather, they will simply put, a gel, and they would put a sonar receiver that will simply be reading or taking all the readings by using some ultrasounds or ultrasonic sounds, right? So guys, let's break down the meaning of this technique. So it says ultrasound. So what exactly is the meaning of ultrasound guys? First of all, ultrasound basically means sound frequency of more than 20,000 hertz, right? Sound frequency of more than 20,000 hertz. What exactly is this? So guys, whenever we talk about any wave, when we talk about any kind of wave, it could be any wave guys, it could be light, sound, earthquakes, any kind of wave. When we talk about a wave, generally has a function or a characteristic called frequency. Frequency is nothing but number of times a wave is occurring in 1 second. So imagine if I'm waving my hand like this. Of course, this will also a wave. This is also nothing but a disturbance or a wave. But the frequency of this wave, this hand is waving hardly two times in 1 second. So you will say that the frequency of this wave is 2 hertz. Hertz simply means per second, right? So 2 hertz. So hertz is the unit of frequency. It means per second. So if I start waving my hand 2 times in 1 second, it means the frequency is 2 hertz. When you talk about the electricity connection, that we receive in our households, the frequency of those electricity connection is around 50 hertz. That means it is 50 times in 1 second. The wave of the electricity that we receive, which is in the form of alternating current, the wave of that electricity that we receive, it is 50 hertz. That means every electricity appliance is programmed to work on current signals of 50 times in 1 second. Technically, all these lights that I have in my room, they are technically blinking 50 times in 1 second because they are receiving electricity 50 times in 1 second, 50 hertz, right? So hertz is the unit of wave. Any kind of wave could be in the sense of frequency. When we speak, we have something called vocal cords. the vocal cords or the vocal nodes, they also basically vibrate at a certain frequency. Now the frequency that our ears can hear, that we can hear easily, normally ranges from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So that is called audible frequency or sonic frequency, ranges from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And the frequency that we basically can't hear is less than 20 hertz or more than 20,000 hertz. So if I talk about frequency of sound, 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz is the audible frequency. And when you talk about sound less than 20 hertz, we call it infrasonic. So remember, the word infrasonic is used for sound frequencies less than, sonic word comes from sound only, sound frequencies of less than 20 hertz, infrasonic, and sound frequencies of more than 20,000 hertz, that's ultrasonic, right? So in the case of ultrasound also, it is the sound frequency of more than 20,000 hertz, ultrasonic sounds, right? So when you go for an ultrasound scan, you are basically exposing your body or your organs to an ultrasonic sound, and it is a non-invasive therapy. No cuts are made on the skin, and the person is easily able to, and the doctor is easily able to diagnose whatever is happening internally, right, by simply looking at or listening to the echoes or reflections of sound produced from internal organs. Now guys, for tremors in particular, now tremors are usually of two types. One is the tremor that may happen normally, very frequently, or very commonly found because of old age. You must have seen sometime old age people, they may not be diagnosed with any disease like Parkinson's, but still they have some frequent tremors. We call them essential tremors. So essential tremors are basically the tremors that occur in old age, and these are quite common and quite naturally found. But the other kinds of tremors which are caused due to Parkinson's, this is basically the tremors that are caused, we call them TDPD, right? We call them tremor dominant Parkinson's disease. This is the kind of a disease based tremors, and these tremors are so uncontrollable that they can even, sometime a person may end up hurting themselves. So that's why you might have heard that for a severe Parkinson's case, doctors do not allow such patients to work in a kitchen, especially with knives or other sharp objects, because if a tremor occurs at the time of doing some kitchen or doing some cooking, there may be a chance that the person may hurt himself because the tremors are uncontrollable, right? Unfortunately guys, for such tremors, for both these type of tremors, whether it is essential tremors or tremor dominant Parkinson's disease, TDPD, there is no cure. There is no cure yet. But if you talk about what causes these tremors, so guys, the answer to this question regarding the cause of these tremors is usually associated with the thalamus part of your brain. Now guys, when you talk about the brain is generally divided into three parts. We have the upper brain, which is the larger brain, then we have the midbrain, and then we have the hindbrain, right? We call it the prosencephalon, mesoencephalon, and endoencephalon. The midbrain is the one where there is a component called thalamus located. We also have a lot of nerves running between the upper and the lower brain, and the hindbrain is the place where we have cerebellum located. The cerebellum happens to be responsible for neuromuscular balance, body balance and such. So basically it is considered that tremors usually happen because of some abnormal cerebellothalamic pathway. Remember, the word cerebello comes from cerebellum, which is located in the hind part of the brain, right? Hind part of the brain, cerebellum, and thalamus, which is located in the midbrain, right? If some of you have read about science even a little, you might have heard of something called hypothalamus that controls the pituitary gland or the master gland of the body, right? So thalamus. So thalamus is basically located in the midbrain, which is basically associated with the rest of the body through a lot of nerves and such. So whenever there is an abnormality in the cerebellothalamic pathway or cerebellothalamic activity of the body, it often leads to tremors, right? So guys, this technique of magnetic resonance guided focused ultrasound, they basically try to the ventral intermediate nucleus. This is the word used for, you don't have to remember the word, I don't think that the word is important. It is mainly the word used for the nervous system, or you can say the nerve cells involved or attached to the thalamus with the rest of the body. So this basically is a therapy that attacks directly to the nerves, that connects the thalamus with the rest of the body. And by this particular therapy, we have found that it has been able to alter the abnormal behavior of cerebellothalamic pathways. And when it is able to alter the abnormal behavior of cerebellothalamic pathways, it has reduced the tremor severity by a significant margin. So guys, this technique has been found to be highly beneficial for those patients who are suffering with tremors due to old age, essential tremors, or TDPD, which are basically Parkinson's disease induced tremors. And in both the cases, this therapy called MRGFUS have been found to be highly effective. The direct advantage of this therapy is that there is no hardware risk, right? It is not having any complicated hardware. There is no implantation, non-invasive, so there's no risk associated with this. It is completely a therapy that you take from outside. Then it is dynamic adjustments. Basically, the treatment here can basically be adjusted with any other procedure that you may be taking. It does not have to be applied by stopping other medication. So if you're taking any other medication, you can still go for this therapy. And we all know it is minimally invasive, does not require any incision in the body, does not require any general anesthesia. So there is no risk of any kind of allergies. There is no risk of any kind of strange or alien objects that are put in. And it is usually a one-time procedure, right? It is usually a one-time procedure, has been found to be highly effective without any follow-up surgeries or follow-up maintenance, right? So this is supposed to be a therapy that has worked out, and it is found to be quite effective, especially for Parkinson's and other essential tremors, right? So these are the three topics which are there in the subject of science, which are highly factual. Now let me talk about other three topics which are somewhat conceptual. But before I talk about the concepts of science, let me tell you one thing here, that when it comes to the concepts of the conceptual part of science, we often do not realize how much in depth we have to go, right? I can talk about few things in lot of depth. There are few things where I also realize that we may not require to go in a lot of depth. So guys, you have to understand, you have to take constant coaching, or you have to take constant guidance from a mentor who will help you in understanding till what depth the things are needed, right? So guys, one interesting news that has come out recently, that scientists have been able to create, or scientists have been able to convert light into a super solid material. Now how it is possible? Light is something that is considered to be the fastest thing in the universe. It is the fastest thing in the universe. And secondly, it is made up of massless particles. It is made up of massless particles known as photons, right? Light is basically made up of massless particles called photons. So how it is possible that you convert light into some super solid substance? Now guys, when I talk about solid state, you understand solid is something which is a state of matter, right? Solid, liquid, gas, it's a state of matter. And what exactly is a matter? A matter is something that is having mass plus volume, right? Light happens to be a material so far which was never found to be having mass or volume either. So how light has been able to, we have been able to convert light into something like that. Now guys, this becomes a really interesting research. And of course, from UPSC point of view, we may not have to go in a lot of depth, but we should know that what kind of possibilities this research can open up in future. So guys, let me tell you that this research is a part of quantum physics or quantum research or quantum technologies, where they have been able to convert a photon into a super solid substance. Now, before I go ahead and talk about this particular therapy or this particular experiment, let me tell you that the word that is used here is super solid. What is a super solid? A super solid is basically such a state of matter where a substance behaves like a solid. That means it is crystalline like a solid. It is like a crystal, solid crystal, which has a definite shape. But at the same time, it is also able to flow like a liquid without resistance. So a substance that exists as both solid and is also able to flow like a liquid without any resistance, we call that state is super solid state. So super solid state happens to be a state where a substance behaves both as a solid as well as a liquid. Guys, even in my classes, I've sometimes talked about supercritical fluids. Supercritical fluids are those fluids which behave as both solid, liquids and gases at the same time. They show flow like a fluid, like a gas or a liquid, but they show solubility like a liquid. So they flow like a gas, they expand like a gas, but at the same time they dissolve substances like a liquid. So this is what is known as supercritical fluids. So when you talk about the properties of different substances, this super solid state is such a state where a substance behaves like a solid as well as a liquid at the same time, right? So if you look at this, what does it say? A super solid is a unique state that combines crystal's solid framework with frictionless fluid movement. Fluid movement is associated with liquid here, although gases can also be fluids, right? Frictionless, it doesn't face any resistance. So this is basically is the concept of super solid. Now guys, this idea of super solids, that super solids exist, this concept of super solid is not a new concept. Scientists for the first time predicted that super solids may exist way back in 1960s. In 1960s, for the first time, scientists predicted that super solid substances may exist, and you would be surprised to know that in 2017, scientists were actually able to create super solids in a laboratory. Scientists were really able to create super solids in a laboratory in the year 2017, right? So this is basically something that has already happened in the name of the research of super solids. But now let me tell you in what condition these super solids are normally formed. So guys, super solids are usually formed when you cool down a substance to a temperature close to absolute zero. That means when you go close to 0 Kelvin or minus 273 degrees Celsius. So when you go close to 0 Kelvin or a temperature of minus 273 degrees Celsius, this is where the physics that we know, the behavior of matter that we understand through our physics books, through our classical physics books, it starts deviating from that trend. Many of the laws of physics, especially the laws related to thermodynamics, the laws related to matter, they starts to malfunction, and we need to look at the behavior of substances in a completely new light when we are dealing with a temperature close to absolute zero or 0 Kelvin. Now guys, 0 Kelvin is basically a kind of a temperature where a substance loses all its energy. Of course, there is some energy that might still be there in the molecules which cannot be eliminated, but it loses a lot of energy. And that is where the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry that we have come across with, they stop functioning or they stop behaving in the same exact way. And that is where we need to do a lot of new research is happening in that area. A lot of new theories are coming up in that area. So this concept of super solid also somewhat appears in conditions close to 0 Kelvin. I believe all of you guys are able to understand. So scientists, what they did, they basically created a particle called polaritons. They basically created a particle called polaritons, and this particle of polaritons was actually created through light. And that's what scientists are saying, that this could be a super solid state of light that may be possible at a temperature close to absolute zero. So basically what scientists have done, they have taken two particles. One is the photons of light. This is the one particle, and there is another particle called excitons or excitons. Excitons are usually the particles that are produced when there is a negative charge that gets exited from a bigger particle. So excitons are also very small particles. They are found to be produced whenever electrons or other charged particles are released out of an atom. Usually the electrons, when they get released, so they basically leaves a certain excited state of a particle called excitons. And these excitons, when they are released out of an atom, scientists took photon, which is a massless particle, with exciton, which has a slight high mass, and they have been able to merge both of them into each other. They have been able to couple both of them into each other and created a particle called polariton. So polariton is basically a coupled particle which includes photon with excitons, and both these photons and excitons are very small subatomic particles which essentially have been combined with each other, and once they have been combined with each other, the new particle that is produced, it's called a polariton. So polariton is not a single particle but a combination of a photon plus exciton, and that is why the scientists are calling it a super solid state, where they have been able to convert light particle of photon into a solid state particle called polariton. Now remember guys, polariton is not yet considered as a part of the standard atomic model, but it has been created as a combination of two different particles. I believe all of you guys are able to get it. So this is, now I don't expect you to know the basic concepts behind this, because if I tell you honestly how substances behave at quantum state, at the particle state, how substances are behaving close to 0 Kelvin, these are those fields of science which are still being studied. These are not the kind of fields which have been studied for hundreds of years. We are still studying these fields, and we are learning new and new things about quantum physics. So it is still a work in progress. So guys, the scientists created this new particle which is in combination of photons plus excitons, and when this particle was brought to a super cool temperature, like a temperature close to absolute zero, it eventually lined up like a crystal and also flowed very smoothly. So when it lined up like a crystal and also kept on flowing smoothly, it replicated the properties of a super solid. So guys, when it comes to the concept of light as a super solid, it's basically not like light independently has been converted into a solid substance. It is basically light particle when combined with another matter particle created a polariton which behaved like a super solid substance. That's basically the idea, right? Now when something like this happens, what is the kind of possibilities, or what is the kind of things that now we can come out from here? What are the things that we can learn from here, right? Acha, these are some of the properties that the polaritons are expected to have. So guys, quantum coherence, this is the first advantage that we have of this research. So it maintains a single macroscopic quantum state. Low temperature typically created near absolute zero. This is the condition for polaritons again. Then photons are massless. There is otherwise no mutual interaction between light particles. Light particles do not interact with any other substance, so it has been artificially interacted. And guys, light always travels at a constant speed. Light always travels at a constant speed, guys. It is the fastest thing in the universe and also travels at a constant speed, and that speed has been found to be 3 into 10 to the power 8, nearly 3 into 10 to the power 8 meters per second. This is the speed of light, right? And then guys, when it comes to light otherwise does not interact. So in order to make it interact, we require a mediation, and that's what happens when the light got coupled with a matter particle called exciton. In this case, the light interacted and it eventually created polaritons, right? So these are some of the features about light. And guys, if UPSC would want to ask a question on this, that what is the real advantage of such a research, so understand this guys, because we have learnt enough regarding how substances, how matter behaves at room temperature 25 degrees Celsius. But like I said, our research, our understanding of subatomic particles, our understanding of quantum physics, our understanding of matter behaving close to absolute zero is still in somewhat progressive state. We have still not learnt enough. There's still a lot more things to learn. So that's why this is nothing but a stepping stone in the direction of overall research on quantum physics, and also in the study of light, and also in the behavior of light, how it would be behaving when you consider it very low temperature. Now guys, we already know that light otherwise do not interact. But imagine if the conditions that has made light interact and produce matter particles like this, then it may be a possibility that light somewhere in the universe might also be naturally producing matter particles. We have not yet discovered anything like that, but it obviously opens up an opportunity of finding polaritons in the universe now. So you can understand that these kind of research can essentially help us to learn more about the universe as well. I hope all of you guys are able to understand. So it is just a stepping stone in the direction of studies and understanding more about nature, more about the realities around us. I hope all of you guys are able to understand. Then the next topic of our discussion, it's a small topic. If I want to put it in a simple way, ham radio is nothing but the basic radio which did not require any kind of mobile network, did not require any kind of satellite. It was just nothing but a person speaking at a certain frequency on one side, and there is another person listening to the person on the other side, and they both are simply interacting at a certain radio frequency. Like how the basic walkie-talkie works, that's exactly how a ham radio works, right? Ham radios are still being used popularly for emergency services, for even for playing and such. These ham radios are quite common. So these are basically simple devices that uses radio waves and between two terminals. So one is sending the signals, the other one is receiving it, then the other person can also respond, providing two-way communication without the use of any complex network, without the use of any complex mobile network and such. We call it a simple ham radio, right? But remember guys, ham radios are also licensed, they are also registered, right? And they are usually non-commercial because they are basically used for two-way radio communication, and they provide you real-time two-way radio communication. Simple walkie-talkies you can consider, right? So it simply requires a transceiver, a frequency matched antenna, so two terminals matched with the same frequency, and a regulated power for stable transmission. Of course, that is required for a stable transmission. So guys, Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla, he has recently used a ham radio to communicate with students based in India using this particular simple device from International Space Station to India, right? And guys, ham radios have been quite commonly used. They have been used in warfares, they have been used in so many places, right? Like I said, walkie-talkies can also be ham radios, right? So it supports voice signals you can send through ham radios. You can even send Morse code. Encrypted messages also can be sent, text, images, and even data can be transferred across assigned radio frequencies, right? So ham radio can deliver a lot of features. So it's simply a simple radio, right? Usually the operators must announce a unique call sign every 10 minutes. Usually what happens when you're talking to somebody on a ham radio, the operator may announce a unique call sign every 10 minutes because after every 10 minutes interference can occur. So usually the call signs are generated every 10 minutes. So ham radios requires this unique calling that has to be generated every 10 minutes. You must have seen in police, in traffic signals, they often use this. There is a separate frequency that is allocated. So frequency bands are assigned across the radio spectrum, that can be used by national authorities or for international telecom based on the guidelines from the International Telecommunication Union. So nobody else can use those frequencies, right? The signals range from local to intercontinental and even space-based communication. Like Shubhanshu Shukla himself is somewhere around 400 kilometers from Earth, and he's able to communicate with us. So that clearly shows that ham radios are able to function up to that distance also, right? So remember, there is an organization called International Telecommunication Union that has provided the guidelines for allocating frequencies, right, for ham radio signals, right? So national authorities, like in India, we have got Telecom Regulatory Authority of India that allocates how many frequency bands would be there for ham radios and for other services, right? So ham radios are considered to be low cost, infrastructure free, because you do not need a mobile network for it, just two terminals connected to each other, infrastructure free, communication during network failures or disasters. Like I said, it is often used by so many armed forces and such, right? The legal basis of, now in India, the ham radios are basically governed under Indian Wireless Telegraph Amateur Services Rules 1979, which comes under the Indian Telegraph Act, and which is the licensing authority for India. The amateur radio licenses are issued by Wireless and Planning Coordination WPC wing of the Ministry of Communication, right? So Ministry of Communication provides the licensing, and under Ministry of Communication we have got the Wireless Planning and Coordination wing. I hope you are able to understand. They are the ones who provide these services. So guys, because ham radio has been in the news, you should be knowing what exactly is a ham radio, and I believe all of you guys have been able to understand this, right? Ham radio. Now guys, the last topic of our discussion, I believe it is called Altermagnet. Now what exactly is an Altermagnet? Now why it has been in the news? So guys, scientists at Satyendranath Bose National Center has discovered direction dependent conduction polarity DDCP in chromium antimonide, which is a newly discovered altermagnet, right? So chromium antimonide is a newly discovered altermagnet, and while studying this particular altermagnet, scientists at SN Bose National Center discovered direction dependent conduction polarity, right? Direction dependent conduction polarity. That means it was basically a kind of a conductivity signal, kind of a conductivity in through a matter, through a substance, which was direction dependent, that only in one direction it was conducting, right? But here what is important to know is the term called altermagnet. Now guys, if I would like to put it in front of you, all of you must have seen how iron responds to magnets, right? All of you must have noticed that if you bring iron close to a magnet, the iron quickly clings to the magnet. It quickly touches or attaches itself with the magnet, right? All of you must have seen that. Iron quickly clings to the magnet, right? Now this behavior of iron, it's called ferromagnetic behavior, right? This behavior of iron, that when you bring iron close to any magnet, it will quickly cling to a magnet, it will respond to the magnetic field, we call it ferromagnetic behavior. Now guys, iron is one very interesting ferromagnetic substance, but apart from iron, we also have nickel, that is also ferromagnetic. Cobalt is also ferromagnetic, cobalt is CO. Cobalt is also ferromagnetic, and guys, even ruthenium has been found to be ferromagnetic, right? Ruthenium is also found to be ferromagnetic. So ferromagnetic are those substances that responds to magnetic field, and those substances which do not respond to magnetic field, at all, we call them non-ferromagnetic. So non-ferromagnetic are those substances which basically have no net magnetism seen. Guys, the idea of magnetic field is basically on the basis of alignment of the atoms. So if the atoms are aligned in a way that they can respond to a magnetic field, we call it ferromagnetic. If the atoms are aligned in such a way that they all cancel out their behavior and they do not respond to a magnetic field, we call it non-ferromagnetic. Like you must have seen, aluminium does not respond to magnet. That means the atoms inside aluminium, they are aligned in such a way that the net effect towards the magnet is cancelled. You can understand it like this. Whereas the atoms in the case of iron, they get aligned in such a way that the net effect towards a magnet is seen, it's observed. We call it ferromagnetic, right? I believe all of you understand. So this is ferromagnetic, non-ferromagnetic. But guys, what exactly is an altermagnet? What exactly is an altermagnet, guys? So altermagnets are those substances which lies in the midway. That means altermagnets, their particles, or I should say electrons, they are as responsive, their particles or electrons are as responsive to magnetic field, just like we have particles of iron, cobalt, nickel, just like ferromagnetic substances. But at the same time, they can also cancel the other magnetic fields. Just like a non-ferromagnetic substance. So altermagnets are basically substances that can behave like a magnet or can also behave like a non-magnetic material, probably at the same time. The only thing is, when you see it at an atomic scale, it may behave like a magnet, but when you see it at a macro scale, it may behave like a non-magnetic substance. That's basically is the concept of altermagnet. So you can see that altermagnets are novel magnetic materials that have properties of both ferromagnets and antiferromagnetic particles, substances, right? These are called altermagnets, right? These are called altermagnet. So one altermagnet that has been recently discovered is chromium antimonide. Chromium antimonide. So chromium antimonide in its atomic state can show ferromagnetism, but when you see it in its macro stage, it may start showing non-ferromagnetism, right? So like it says, altermagnets atomic spin cancel out like antiferromagnets. So it is basically going to cancel out, just like how the net magnetic impact get cancelled out in non-ferromagnets. This also happens here, but resulting in no external magnetism, right? But their symmetry still influences electrons movements as in ferromagnets. So the particles internally may still behave like ferromagnets, right? So guys, they don't interfere with other parts like regular magnets do. So they do not interfere, they do not respond to other components around them like regular ferromagnetic substance, but they do build a memory. They can help, but their electrons internally do get aligned, just like how ferromagnetic substances align. So you have a substance, so you can think about it like this. If I would try to explain, suppose if this is a substance, right, and let's suppose this is iron. The moment you bring iron close to a magnet, all the atoms of the iron, they get aligned in the same direction, right? And as they get aligned in the direction of the magnetic field, this is called ferromagnetism. If it would have been a non-ferromagnetic or an anti-ferromagnetic substance, then in that case, the alignment would be in such a way that it would be cancelling out. All the atoms, they would be aligned in such a way that the net effect would be cancelling out each other. It will be anti-ferromagnetic or non-ferromagnetic, right? In case of altermagnet, this is how the arrangement remains. When you look at it from outside, the effect of magnetic field is not observed. In altermagnets, it is not observed. But when you see it closely in its atomic stage, you will see the electrons do get aligned in this way. The electrons do get aligned like this. Electrons do get aligned. So what is the interesting fact about them is that if you make any substance from these altermagnets, the electrons get aligned in a certain manner, and at the same time, all these particles, the net effect of magnetic field is still zero. So just imagine if I make a sensor to observe any kind of magnetic field around us with these altermagnets. The altermagnet may not influence any magnetic field around them, but if I record the movement of the electrons, if they would have sensed any magnetic field, the electrons would start aligning in the direction of the magnetic field. So this what makes altermagnets an interesting choice of materials for creating such devices, such kind of electronic sensors which are meant for identifying magnetism. I hope you guys are able to understand. So this is what is the concept. So guys, they have a huge requirement or huge, scientists think that they can help build new memory devices and maybe even better types of computers, right? Storage devices, better types of computers, which needs to be used for storing some kind of, whether it is temporary memory and such, right? These altermagnets. In electronics, they can be used for creating faster low energy devices, reducing device heating, and even allowing faster switching, right? Faster switching. All these are the possibilities that may open up by the use of altermagnets, right? So this is what we have under the use of altermagnets. I hope all of you guys have been able to understand. And with this, I complete the discussion for this week's Magnum Weekly. I'll be meeting you again next week, talking about all the developments in the subject of science and technology of the past of this ongoing week. So guys, this is everything for today. Please write in the comment if you want to learn anything else. If there is any point that I have missed explaining, please write about it. I'll be responding to the comments myself, and make sure that you are taking that you are taking out the best from these discussions, and do keep a paper and pen paper and a pen around, so that you can write all these important points as well, right? So this completes our discussion for this week's Magnum Weekly. All the best, guys.